This is The Mindful Trainer, the podcast that takes you beneath the reps and routines and into the raw, unfiltered stories of athletes, trainers, guides, and coaches who've battled through injury, burnout, and life's curveballs to come back stronger. I'm your host, Melanie Webb, and every week we peel back the layers to uncover what really shapes a coach, the setbacks, the scars, and the rebuild. Because behind every strong body is a story of resilience. This is where vulnerability meets strength, where training gets personal, and where we stop pretending that we have it all figured out. If you're a trainer, athlete, or anyone who's been knocked down and fought your way back, you're in the right place. The Mindful Trainer, strip back the surface and train deeper. Subscribe now on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. Let's get on to the show. Welcome to The Mindful Trainer, the podcast that takes you inside the minds of athletes, coaches, trainers, and guides who have battled through challenges to reach their goals. I am your host, Melanie Webb, and I'm joined today by Jennifer Schwartz, founder of the hit podcast, Think Fit, Be Fit, and owner of Impact Your Fitness Studio in Alexandria, Virginia. I've known Jennifer for over 15 years, and every encounter leaves me inspired. Can you believe that, Jen? 15 years. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Hello to the Mindful Trainer.
I'm so happy to have you on my podcast and be able to reciprocate, having been a guest on yours. And like I told you before we started, I got a little bit of butterflies having an expert like you on my show, and I'm just excited to learn from you. Before we dive into the conversation, I want to share a little bit more about you with our audience. I want them to know how amazing you are and what a brainiac you are in the world of fitness. I pulled some of these from the Impact Your Fitness website, which was so impressive. So Jen has been providing fitness-based muscle therapy with muscle activation techniques at the highest level. And she's one of 87 MAT RX full body specialists worldwide. Jen's been offering Pilates and physical therapy at her studio in Alexandria with a growing team of experts to apply their specialized knowledge to empower clients in increasing their own wellness. She's been improving her clients' quality of life, flexibility, and strength with non-invasive, precise, cutting-edge techniques. Her continued advancement of her education is constantly evolving her practice. And with her lifelong passion of service, growth, and wholeness, she brings a whole person to the service of her client base. When I see the content you do put out, it's like you've got your own human laboratory going on. For the listeners, you've got to go check out Jennifer's Instagram channel. That's the one I follow. And of course, we're going to list these in the show notes, and Jennifer's going to say these at the end. But Jen, I want you to say what it is right now too, in case it wants to look at it while we talk.
Yeah. So my Instagram, I'm posting a lot about my healing journey, but also like what we're doing at the studio. And sometimes they link together. So it's impact_your_fitness_studio, Impact Your Fitness Studio. And then I'm Jennifer Simone Schwartz on Instagram. And so the two are pretty connected, but you'll get a little bit more of that technique and technical side on the studio, and then a little bit more of me on my brand page.
What one will see when they open your page is electricity, current. What are you doing over there?
So a lot of my thought process has been born from working with muscle activation techniques and seeing fast changes with clients. And it always kept me in awe. So I took that awe and I explored it and sat and really worked with my creativity, but also I've studied and learned under some very interesting, scientifically sound people. And so what we're doing here is we're using a dual wavelength electrical current. So that means alternating current and direct current into the body. And that's just one thing that we do. But ultimately, what we're doing is helping people's nervous system, muscle system, and brain re-engage around these old injuries. And that revitalizes essentially anything from MS to arthritic conditions to some standard sports injuries and also like major reconstructions. So it's whole range of people. We treat the body as this whole, and we harness a lot of electricity, muscle activation techniques, isometric exercise, strength training as well, and to help people learn how to stabilize their joints better to get the whole better. And it improves their movement and their psychology around their movement pretty quickly. So we see changes pretty quick. I mean, within 3 sessions, somebody will come back to us and say, "Well, my exercise has completely changed. I'm going to my group class and I don't feel as hesitant as I once was. I don't feel that instability. I don't feel that pain." And we keep going until we, kind of armor everything up, and then they can go harder and then they keep coming back because they're going harder and they realize
Yeah.
how much exercise changes their trajectory. So that's what we're doing.
How do you explain to clients that we are electricity?
Well, I explain that the nervous system's kind of in charge, and that is an electrical thing. Like, there's just no way around like understanding that the brain is fully communicating in electrical signals, just like email. Like, it is like an electrical from start to finish. So, and then we just kind of explain that the muscles are really unique, and the spine as well, in that they make and store energy. The muscles are literally like batteries, and that's what we're taking advantage of. So when there is a lack of movement, like inflexibility, there's, arthritic changes, there's dehydration in the tissue, there's muscle knots, all of that has an electrical component to it. And that essentially is what we work with. We assume that those problems have an electrical component to it, an
Mm.
electrical dysfunction, and we're correcting that. And so there's and we're getting in there in different levels, muscle activation techniques being that deepest level. Our movement protocol with the electrical current being a little bit more functional and whole body. And then we have our isometric training system, which is much more about the how people move and teaching people like we call it a brain sweat, because you're literally like putting it together piece by piece and reteaching how to use the right muscles at the right time. And it's not just the standard like clamshell, like feel your glutes when you do the bridge, or it's like much more dialed in, and literally like looking at it piece by piece, not expecting them to do it on their own,
Mm.
but really just in revitalizing that tissue right on the spot, and then expecting them to take that to the next level with their exercise and being, whatever that is, outside, in the Pilates studio, everything in between. The currents here are what we're working with. And sometimes I don't need to explain it more than that, because we're getting changes and we're so confident in helping people and comfortable helping people in this way, that we just really want to get them to feel it pretty quickly. Like, we want them to experience it. We're really good at engineering feedback with our equipment and our machines. Muscle activation techniques uses a lot of muscle testing. So people can, like, they jump on board because we're providing an environment for feedback. And we're like, "Do you feel how much stronger this movement is? Do you feel how much more together this movement is?" We didn't build muscle in 20 minutes. We're just resparking things.
Hmm.
And, and there's more spark plugs to go around, right? There's more of the electrical field of that muscle has been corrected. And so when you explain it in this like really simple, like spark plugs, short circuit, they're like, okay. Or I just use these interesting analogies. Like, if they have a nerve problem, I use a hose. I'm like, somebody's stepping on your hose, and that's why that nerve is not getting like nutrition, which is oxygen and blood. And so they're like, okay. And they just kind of, I don't know, trust in that experience. And they should, because we do have the experience and the anatomy. Like, the people that work here are, they haven't just taken a weekend class. Like, one of the people that do this work, the nurse, and she works in the OR when she's not here. She's an anesthetist. nobody knows more about nerves than her, really, in my opinion. And then, another person that works here is, a physical therapy assistant. It's a very like the people that I've built on this team also have that like deep knowledge of anatomy. And I have a huge respect for deep knowledge of anatomy and curiosity in our anatomy. I always, when new trainers are interested in what we do, and we'll have college kids coming through here during the summer, that's where I'm at. I'm like, get interested in anatomy. And if you fall in love with it, you're going to be a great body worker because it's, to me, one of the most important things.
What
But
an
it's also
overview.
like sharing that excitement about
Yeah.
biology, anatomy, and physiology through the podcast. Like, I think that's a big, people really like latch onto that excitement. And that's how I've also curated a great team, is sharing that excitement for
Yes.
anatomy. It's so rewarding. It's paying off. I followed my excitement.
I love the language that you use, like awe, right? Like
Yes.
vitality and awe, and is the manifestation of who you are as a person, your personal exploration into learning and growing and using the various modalities that help you do that. And I think of your own electrical current, it's the generative force behind
Yeah.
these brands that you're building. Just hearing you talk about the interns that will be spending time with you in the summer, like really did cement for me the fact that you are like a human laboratory over there. It's applied science and it's learning science, right?
Yeah, it's fun. We have one college student coming back for employment after interning with us last year, another one coming back as he's going to be a great personal assistant and project manager. And he's produced a podcast as well. Shout out to Cole. And then his baby sister, is
Oh,
doing
fun.
her high school senior like project with us. I'm so glad I have them. I'm on their radar, and I'm making them curious. Like that's so rewarding.
Yeah, you're influencing the next generation and you've got so many more years to go. Are you doing what you saw yourself doing when you started your own academic career, or has it morphed and
Yeah.
evolved?
No, I think when I started, I got more inspired by anything and everything when I started doing MAT. MAT is really what sparked me. It's what brought me into being academic, even though it's not that academic. It helped me ask better questions and ask more questions. When I found MAT as a client many years ago, I was in the space of, do I want to go to physical therapy school? I know I want to be in this space and I want to help people. And I was in the middle of starting to apply the standard exams to get in. It did feel impossible because I had struggled with dyslexia for so long. And when I found MAT, it was the first thing that like really made sense to me. And it helped my brain open up on a very deep foundational level. So once I found that and I felt that spark and I started meeting people like I am spending time with Ami and colleagues of that nature, and seeing how the Sports Club LA, like what a professional like looked like, that was really important for me too. I started to put it all together, and that I had a vision of um and a studio grounded in my skill set as a muscle activation technique specialist. I had a vision for sharing the enthusiasm on the podcast, the techniques and the teachers that have come my way since then. That I did not have that vision, but like the vision of sharing the excitement for how quickly the nervous system and the can change things, and how quickly um we can influence our movement in a positive way. That's the vision. That's what I need to bring out. And that's what my studio is going to be based on. And so, yes, it's a like full body. It's always been a full body yes for that. So,
Yeah, a full body yes, that's
yeah.
awesome. I can almost feel that too. And
Yeah.
I personally have really enjoyed seeing the nervous system come more front and center for a lot of us, I think. And
Yeah.
it's so interesting, some of the conversations I've had so far with the podcast, when we talk about what are you doing for yourself? How are you recovering? Like everybody's mentioning it comes down to nervous system regulation. And that wasn't so 20 years ago, 10 years ago. I'm had a deep dive into nervous system,
Yeah.
the last 5 years, and it's been a huge emphasis and utterly changed the way I approach my body. It feels like a good moment to segue into your podcast
Mhm.
because I've really enjoyed the breadth of topics that you explore. It takes a curious mind to talk to one's dentist on a fitness podcast, right?
Yeah.
Which you do, and you go there and you can hang just perfectly.
Well, Think Fit, Be Fit started as, yes, I wanted to share that love for being curious about the body and being curious about peak performance. Like, how far can I take this thing? How can I, keep my engine running, like, and oiled up and it's fun to drive. I always wanted to share that. And then it became obvious also that my excitement was infectious, right? And so people have always constantly asked me, what do you do for your body? What do you do for your health and your food and your dog? And it's just like all these lifestyle questions. It was always like that. And so I was attracting curious people and then, sharing these conversations just table side and fitness, like gym side, right? Like and then off the fitness floor, of course, too. And at parties and whatever social events. And so that's when I really wanted to start bringing in the people that help me and how that impacted my fitness. And so that's one part. But then Think Fit Be Fit has evolved into a network. And so when you look it up on Apple, or it's a channel, and Think Fit Be Fit is one of the 4 shows. I have a new personal project coming up that won't be part of that, but it does absolutely has a big impact on my health. But Think Fit Be Fit is it was a long format conversation, an hour, sometimes a little bit more. And then that evolved into another long format show called Fitness for Consumption. We call that the academic level of, where we have 2 motor science, motor learning teachers, and I don't want to say experts because they just don't approach it that way, but that's what they are, trying to teach motor learning and motor control to a fitness consumer. So it's like this 300 level when we're talking about like, college, right? And then the next show was much more about trends. So we started talking about fitness trends and body positivity and things that were just scrolling on our Instagram, and trends we didn't like, trends we did like. And that's called Peach Pit Fitness. And I haven't produced one of those in a couple of years. And then we have, so these have been taking a nap for about a year. So on May 1st, we are relaunching our shortest format podcast, which is called Impact Your Fitness Podcast. And that's mostly me sharing things that are happening in the studio and really dialing in on these like education pieces. But Think Fit, Be Fit, that long format, one-on-one conversation is just, it's part my curiosity. It's part all my clients' curiosity. The people that I have found that have helped me so much, like my dentist. But also like she talks about the airway all the time. That's one of her specialties. So that's what we made that podcast about, was talking about the airway and how dental health and thyroid health are connected. And so anyone who's trying to improve their body should, I think, know that the airway, the teeth, and the thyroid, there's a connection there. And I've been able to grow so much as a person and so much as a self-healing vitalist enthusiast.
I love that
um,
title for you.
yeah. I'm a self-healing enthusiast, and people they want that for themselves. And so I think that's where that comes, really full circle for it. And so it's man, it's still, I love it. And I've been doing that since 2018. So,
Jennifer. I
so
was
Think
about to
Fit, Be
ask how
Fit.
long.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Think Fit, Be Fit has probably about 200 episodes. Impact Your Fitness has 20, and we're going into our second season.
Okay.
Peach Pit Fitness has, I think, like 25 episodes. And then Fitness for Consumption has 3 seasons. So let's just say 30 to 35 episodes. And they serve our clients in multiple ways. And they serve someone I'm training as that's working with us now. Part of her employee training was some of these podcasts because they're
Oh,
so high level.
fantastic.
They're
Mhm.
so good, the information is rich. And, I mean, and like Fitness for Consumption, those were 2 of my mentors. Those are 2 people I consider mentors that I was able to convince to do a podcast and I would help them. And that was like so cool. I'm like, yeah, you guys just share your brilliance and I'll, I'll help on the back end and put it out there.
And facilitate the
Yeah.
conversation. Wow.
Yeah. So good. I mean, that's such a great show. And it's gonna live as it is. It's 35 episodes. You're not getting any more. They're timeless. The information in there is very important, especially for traders.
We're definitely going to include the links to all of
Yep.
those so that you all can go take deep dives. It's been almost 3 years since I traveled back to Washington, D.C. and met with some of you who
Yeah.
contributed content to Webwell. So I
Yeah.
came to your studio, I saw it, I got to see you in action. You contributed the TRX
Mhm.
Bulletproof Your Knees workouts, which were
Yeah.
super fun. And I felt like I should have been recording from the minute I walked in the door on every single person I met with, because like you were saying, like the conversations that take place when you're
Mm.
not recording were so rich and valuable
Mm.
that I felt like I could have just taken those too, and that I
Mm.
lost out on 3/4 of the content. And now that I live out west, I live in Utah now, and I want to stay connected to you all. I consider
Mm.
you all my colleagues still. I look to you all for inspiration and influence. It means a lot to me to have you and some of our former colleagues on the show, because you're not even former colleagues, you're still colleagues, and we're still learning
Yeah.
from each other, and that spirit of camaraderie is still there. And so what I wanted to ask you is, especially now understanding even more fully the breadth of podcasts, this library
Mm.
that you've created, like what tip would you give me as somebody new
Mm.
getting into this?
Well, congrats on having Owen, because that's a big one. You
Yeah.
need
I need help. Yeah.
podcasting is not as simple as it looks. And so to have the space and time to create is a privilege, And so having the instinct and awareness to ask for help, that's
Yes.
my first tip. Don't do it all yourself. It's not as simple as it looks. It's not as cheap as it looks. And that's it. So I think that's number one. And number two, podcasting is more like a radio feed than a social media feed. Social media wants your data. They want to influence you in a manipulative way most of the time, right?
Yes.
Your social media feed has sentience, like, and a
Wow.
consciousness.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
I do.
so when you podcast, you're inviting someone and aligning people into what you are sharing and the medicine that you provide for your clientele. And so the exchange is just much more pure. It's so less icky than a bunch of like, trends and reels.
Yeah.
And so if you can anchor
Mm.
into that with your mission and your heart, you're gonna, I think, there's a numbers game and how many you put out and that kind of thing, but
Okay.
it does add value to your brand when you align like that. And then the end game is not necessarily the downloads, but it should be that alignment which brings the downloads. So
Great.
yeah, so those are my, and I think big, and so those I
You
think
do.
really like kind of like exemplify that. And from the if there's like like a technical tactical tip, I'd say, gosh, yeah, listen to the sound engineers like and the video people. They definitely that's important. Like if we have too many unnatural questions, and we're too scripted, you're not a script actor. I mean, there's some really good storytelling podcasts out there, and they got the music at the right time and this and that. The fitness space, wellness space isn't that.
Right.
Like, so don't pretend like you're a script actor unless you actually have that experience. So I'd say you can't fake that connection with your guests. I think like the questions you're asking me would be the same ones if we were having tea.
Totally. I don't
Yeah.
want what you just spoke to is genuine to who you and I are and what we like to
Mhm.
talk about. And I have to admit it's affirming for me, because I've found this to be so much more natural. From the very first episode we started recording, I thought, I think this is my jam. And I
Yeah.
think it reflects my disillusionment with social media as well,
Yes.
because I've struggled the past year. So where I used to feel like I made new connections and really enjoyed that space, I realize
Mm.
now what you mentioned as the sentience of that algorithm influencing me perhaps to show up out of a different motivation that impacts me every time I go to share
Yes.
something. So I want to show this genuine connection. It's just reignited my fire every time I've had these conversations.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. And I always made it the last thing in my day because I would just be so pumped and jazzed like afterwards. And I think like that's how we know we're in the right space. When you like put effort into a project or a class and you get that spark after you're done and you're sweating a little bit, but not from like the physical exertion, but from the actual excitement. Like
Yeah.
that's so good. Like and I mean, I feel lucky to get to experience that. And I figured out that that excites me early on because, struggling with career decisions is just not fun. We all know that. I mean, it's part of the discipline, but it's also like, how long can we do that?
Yeah.
And we're just not in that, we're not in a time period or zip code where we actually must do things that are so physically taxing.
Right.
Like a factory or some, I just want to
Yeah.
acknowledge the privilege in all this and
Yes.
that, I just hope to be like a lighthouse for that, for some people that, I started this in my mid 20s and, just turned 43 yes 2 days ago.
You did? Oh, happy
Yeah,
birthday.
and it feels better. It feels so good to be in this, like, business now, even after the incredibly personally hard year I had. But this team, the work, it rocks, and it rocks my soul, and I love
Yeah.
that, and I'm here for it, and I hope other people can have that, man.
Yeah, I wanna invite people to follow you on both of your channels because I
Yeah.
think there's so much inspiration to be had on both of them, knowledge and inspiration, and the fact that we're more than a mere
Mm,
body. There's a huge emotional, aspect to healing,
yes.
and that we need to give it its due if we
Mm.
want to heal what happens to us in the body and to the things that happen in our environment. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always known that because when we go back to my origin story of muscle activation techniques, part of that is very emotional for me because I got so hooked on MAT as a practitioner and as a person because the grief I had from my mother's death and
Mm.
illness, which was Lou Gehrig's disease. So
Oh,
watching someone like that candle go out so slowly, vitality again.
oh, wow.
Watch it just drip, drip by drip, little pieces of wax, right? It's such a painful experience. And to experience that as a younger person and then find MAT and be able to like, whoa, like it can go the other way.
Yeah.
I can help people's nervous system be more connected and I can help their brain increase neuroplasticity, which we can do, forest bathing, walking in nature with exercise, with group exercise. We're helping people produce brain chemicals that enhance their body so profoundly. And I'm so honored to be able to like tell people to stop what they're doing and like think about how profound that is. That is part of my healing journey too, you know,
But
working with others,
yeah.
but like really feeling that on a deep level, like really seeing how important it is to keep up our neuroplasticity and make it
Yes.
more accessible. I have the word I call that metaplasticity.
Mm.
Like the more you trigger that change button, the faster you change.
It's
My
so
clients that
true.
come in with, let's just say muscle injury or tightness, who've already done like 3 months of acupuncture, they change faster. They get results way faster than my client who is pushing the limit in his career, like, on three different levels, like personally, mentally with work, and then like plays like pickleball and tennis 5 hours a day, but doesn't strength train and like doesn't
Oh, yeah.
hydrate.
I can
Like,
imagine the wear and tear there.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
but it's not even like the wear and tear, it's the rigidity
Yeah.
of that system. It's like
Yeah.
it's like stuck.
It's like, this is what
And
I do.
I played pickleball 5 hours last night. I'm like, after our treatment, I'm like, can you just actually give your body a rest and like get a good night's sleep? Those links are so important. And like another thing I've studied that really brought in a huge, like interesting perspective for me was pain science. And so I have, a good amount of education there. And that brings in the emotional brain, to the pain paradigm. And so, yeah, we can't separate these things, in my opinion. So that's why I'm stepping into a much more personal space with my new podcast, which is about grief and love and journeying through it all. And it's with our good friend Allison, by the way.
Really? Okay, because I
Yeah.
saw a picture of you two together.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're still working on the branding. We have about 10 episodes recorded. So we have enough to launch. So
Yeah.
we're engaging that way.
That's going to be such a wonderful podcast to listen to. You and Allison together.
Yeah. So, sneak peek, but yeah. So anyways, I don't think these things are separate, and I hope everybody gets cracked open and they like overcome all their physical and emotional obstacles. And I hope we all have the opportunity and the bravery to meet them head on and do it.
Amen, sister. Because that's what it takes pretty much is we're all going to get the opportunity. Are we going to be courageous enough to take it? Because that's exactly what it is. Yeah, I'm inspired. And I knew this was going to be a difficult conversation to put on a time limit. We're going to do that. I'm going to have you back, like I said.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much. This was every bit the rich, inspiring reconnection that I was hoping for and that I knew I'd have with you. And I just want to thank you again and honor you, Jennifer, for the journey that you've been on, not only the last year and a half, but the 15 plus years that I've known you. And so look forward to all of what you have coming out. And I want to invite you again to tell us how to connect with you.
Well, yes. And you're welcome. And thank you for the support and just your light and energy in the space too, because that camaraderie that you've encouraged over the years means a lot. And it has added to my, light and excitement and joy.
Thank you.
Well, all the ripple effects. So Jennifer_Simone_Schwartz on Instagram. That's where you'll find the podcast feed. You'll find the Impact Your Fitness Studio stuff. ImpactYourFitness.net is where the studio is. I have my own website, JenniferSimoneSchwartz.com. And that's it. You can follow my dog too.
Does he have his own channel? He's a cutie.
Anyways.
This episode of The Mindful Trainer is brought to you by Hammer Nutrition, fueling athletes with clean, effective sports nutrition since 1987. Whether you're training for your next big adventure, recovering from an injury, or just trying to feel your best day to day, Hammer has your back with science-backed products that support sustained energy, mental focus, and optimal recovery without the sugar crashes or artificial junk. Personally, I rely on Hammer's endurance fuels and recovery tools to power through long hikes, bike rides, and everything in between, especially on adventures like my recent trek below the rim in the Grand Canyon. Visit hammernutrition.com/Melanie9160 to take 15% off your first order.